So today in part two, we'll be starting the next continuation of public services values, that is ethical concerns and dilemma in public institutions. Public institutions में क्या क्या ethical concerns होते हैं and what all dilemmas usually we have to face in public institutions. Okay. An ethical dilemma refers to making choices between competing ethical principles. It means two ethical principles are there. Now you are in a dilemma like which one to support. Okay. To elaborate, there are two ethical principles, both being right in their own way, but still then they contradict to each other. But observing one ethical principle would lead to compromising another ethical principle. तो ऐसा situations बार बार आता है जहाँ पे in the bureaucracy the officers have to face this. Hence, making choice becomes very difficult. So, public administration involves many such dilemmas. A few such dilemmas are explained here. So, we'll be explaining some dilemmas which will help you in case study. क्योंकि जो case study 125 marks का आएगा, you have to like they'll be giving you a situation. So, you have to first of all find out what are the ethical dilemmas here. ठीक है, so you have to explain that exactly this dilemma versus this dilemma. You have to exactly explain there. Okay. So first is superior's directive versus public good. एक पब्लिक की भलाई के लिए होता है और एक आपके सुपीरियर आपको एक डायरेक्टिव दिया जो आपको मानना पड़ेगा. सो वहां पे भी क्योंकि सुपीरियर जो डायरेक्टिव देता है वो भी इन अ वे लॉफुल है, तो कहीं ना कहीं अगर वो पब्लिक गुड को सपोर्ट नहीं कर रहा है, ओके, सो एट दैट पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम यू फेस अ dilemma, right? So ethics deals with what is right and what is wrong. One plank of ethics claims that one plank of ethics claims that government servant would adhere to the directive of higher officials or higher ups. तो एक ethics ये बोलता है कि जो भी आप काम करोगे, आपके जो higher official जो आपका boss है, anything the directive which he gives, you have to adhere to it. You have to follow it. This is more so in case of security forces like police forces, paramilitary forces. However, many times such directives may contradict public good. So these are all the dilemmas in public institutions which you have to write and you have to explain. Question आ सकता है कि what are the dilemmas of an IAS officer or a public officer faces in public institutions. So you have to write these points and give examples. Or else in a case study, you have to find out which dilemma is conflicting with the other dilemma. अगर कोई एक क्वेश्चन है, एग्जांपल एक सिचुएशन दिया है, it is related to some secrecy, maintaining secrecy or transparency, so you have to write this one. कहीं पे आप discrimination कर रहे हो या फिर preferential treatment if you are giving to someone, so it deals with this one. Okay, sometimes honesty और efficiency के बीच में भी dilemma होता है. रूल वर्सेस फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी ये भी होता है, मतलब एक रूल है बट यू नीड टू बी फ्लेक्सिबल ऑल्सो. लास्ट क्लास में वी कवर्ड कि इन टुडेज टाइम फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी ऑल्सो हैज बिकम अ व्हाट, फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी हैज ऑल्सो बिकम अ वैल्यू इन मॉडर्न टाइम्स. ओके, so in such case the government servant is trapped between the two. To illustrate, a police officer receives credible intelligence reports that a few communal elements are planning to disturb public peace during a religious festival impending the following week. Okay, so you receive an order from the superior not to detain any person for preventive purposes. Not to detain, so ये order आता है कि आप detain नहीं करोगे किसी को preventive purpose के लिए भी. The police has two choices. यहाँ पे दो choices है. Choice one क्या है? Choice one ये है कि non detention of those communal elements. This choice is ethical because of the following reasons. It amounts to adhering to superior order. आप superior order को मानते हो, ठीक है? Detaining a person before he actually commits the crime is not considered ethical by liberals and human rights activists. You are detaining, but he hasn't done any crime as of now. But you are detaining, so it is against the ethics चीज, right? Plus you are also adhering to the superior order. तो एक choice तो ये है. This choice is not ethical because it is against public good. It can cause harm to public life and property also. तो यहाँ पे आप दो चीज बोल रहे हो. This is a good thing, but this is also not like you can say it is not a holistic measure because it can go against the public also. Okay, because communal elements creates law and order problem. Choice two, you detain it. You detain those communal elements. This choice is ethical because it promotes public good, saves loss of life and property. But this choice is not ethical to the extent that you are not obeying the order of the superior. Number one, it leads to curtailing the natural freedom endowed upon those individuals. उनका भी एक freedom है, right? Like to raise their voice. However, these two things can be solved. These two can be solved by the following way. कैसे? Convince the superior about the harm caused to the general public. You have to convince. You have to convince your superior कि if you do this, so this is the harm which the general public will face or the society at large will face. Okay, that is number one. Do whatever promotes greater public good, and then send a detailed report about the circumstances under which such action was taken. So जो ज्यादा public good के लिए better है, you do that and you make a report on the action which you have taken. Okay, then get your decision and action ratified. So whatever you do it in a written format. It's better everything should be done in a written format. So once you write, so things get recorded. Number one, okay, once you write, things get recorded. Plus also what you have taken. The thing is, future mein that will not be a problem. You do not have any kind of evidence or something, but what you have done, you have done in a very written format. Okay, fine. Second case is dilemma between maintaining secrecy versus ensuring transparency. See, both are required. Secrecy is also required. We have Official Secrets Act 1923, right? But also transparency is required. We have RTI Act of 2005. But are these two legislation or laws are absolute? No, there are always exceptions to RTI Act also. Okay, everything cannot be shared. So both secrecy and transparency are ethical principles. Fine. Guarding the information from unscrupulous elements is also ethical. We can't give our sensitive information to unscrupulous elements or to somebody who can misuse it. We should not. Similarly, giving access of government information to unscrupulous elements of society is also ethical. Hence, these are competing ethical principles, and taking a stand between them is a case of ethical dilemma. It means, see, unscrupulous elements you should not give information, but to scrupulous elements, yes, information should be given. Everyone has a right to information. So in this, between two things, there is a thin line. Okay, so it means two competing ethical principles and taking a stand between two things. It is called a like once you are not able to take any stand, that means you are into ethical dilemma. Okay, fine. Secrecy refers to guarding the public information from public. It means you are guarding the public information, government information from public. You are not sharing. Transparency, the opposite, refers to giving access to the government functioning and government information to the public. Now, it is a foregone conclusion that government should promote transparency. However, there are some tricky issues where driving wedge between secrecy and transparency is very tough. One such tricky issue is giving access to file notings to the public. Okay, like example दिया है. Notings made by the officers on the file bear a lot of importance in government's decision. In some sensitive files, there are vested interest that lobby officer to write opinions in their favor. Such lobbies sometimes pose even dangerous threats to officers. In those cases, if such notings are made public, then officers may not speak up their minds. वो हमसे डरेंगे. अगर वो public आ जाएगा, तो obviously they will not speak up their minds. They may bend to pressure and the government decisions may go against public interest. Right? This dilemma can be resolved in the following ways. So, proactive disclosure of non-confidential information by government departments, which are non-confidential, which are not confidential in nature, proactive disclosure should be given by the government. It should be disclosed. Rejecting the request for information on cogent and reasoned grounds. An independent ombudsman within the government to assess if the information sought is so confidential to cause serious harm if disclosed. एक independent ombudsman करो, जैसे RBI ombudsman है. Anything if you have a problem, you can go to the ombudsman. So एक independent ombudsman करो जो कि assess करेगा कि the information क्या इतना कॉन्फिडेंशियल है कि अगर ये डिस्क्लोज हो जाएगा तो बहुत सारे हार्म करेगा पब्लिक को? सो दैट कमीशन विल डिसाइड, ताकि क्लियर हो जाए, ताकि तुम्हारा जो डायलेमा है वो क्लियर हो जाए. ओके, so these are the points you can write in your suggestion of your case study. When there is any kind of case study, you need a suggestion. All these points you can use it in your answer. Okay. नेक्स्ट इज डायलेमा बिटवीन प्रिफरेंशियल ट्रीटमेंट. आप किसी को एक पर्टिकुलर किसी एक एंटिटी को या फिर कोई एक लोग को या फिर किसी को भी आप प्रिफरेंशियल ट्रीटमेंट दे रहे हो, एंड नॉन डिस्क्रिमिनेशन. नॉन डिस्क्रिमिनेशन इज अ गुड थिंग. ऑलवेज शुड नॉट डिस्क्रिमिनेट. तो अगर किसी को आप प्रेफरेंशियल ट्रीटमेंट दे रहे हो, द रीजन में बी एनीथिंग, so obviously it will go against the non discrimination value, right? Preferential treatment refers to favorable treatment to a few as against the rest. किसी किसी चीज को या फिर किसी लोग को आप प्रेफरेंशियल ट्रीटमेंट दे रहे हो. नॉन डिस्क्रिमिनेशन refers to the same treatment to all sections of the society. It is non discrimination, very common thing. Okay. The former promotes ethical value of compassion. अगर प्रिफरेंशियल ट्रीटमेंट दे रहे हो, सपोज एक बहुत ही ज्यादा गरीब पुअर आया है आपके पास कुछ मांगने के लिए, आप वहां के आईएएस ऑफिसर हो या फिर आप डीएम हो, तो ऑब्वियसली एक वैल्यू कंपैशन जो हमने पहले से पढ़ा है कंपैशन, दैट वैल्यू शुड बी देयर, राइट? सो कहीं ना कहीं आप अगर प्रेफरेंशियल ट्रीटमेंट, you are giving a preferential treatment to that poor person, it shows your compassion, which is good, because compassionate is a foundational value. It should be there with a civil servant, while the latter promotes ethical value of equality and impartiality. Yeah, non-discrimination, latter means non-discrimination here. It promotes equality and impartiality. Thus these are two mutually exclusive. If the government wants to be compassionate, it has to offer favorable treatment. अगर कंपैशनेट हो गए तो आपको फेवरेबल ट्रीटमेंट देना पड़ेगा टू द वीकर सेक्शंस. बट दिस कोर्स ऑफ एक्शन वुड विशिएट द प्रिंसिपल ऑफ इम्पार्शियलिटी. लेकिन ये जो आप अगर कंपैशनेट बनोगे तो ऑब्वियसली एवरीबॉडी आर नॉट इक्वल देन फॉर यू. Similarly, if a government decides to treat every section impartially, then some disadvantaged section cannot compete with the privileged sections, leading to cornering the fruits of development by only one section of the society. तो ये भी एक चीज है, तो यहाँ पे और ज्यादा इनइक्वालिटी आ जाएगी. Suppose a government offers reservation to a particular section of a society, then meritorious people in other sections may feel deceived. But if such a reservation is not given, then the underprivileged section shall not get those opportunities. So it is a two sides of the same coin. See, reservation जब हम GS में पढ़ते हैं, हम GS1 में पढ़ते हैं, GS2 में पढ़ते हैं, reservation has both positives and negatives. If you give reservation, obviously जो merit में आते हैं, they always say कि why reservation, but reservation is needed because to promote equality only, so that the underprivileged should come in line with the privileged person and the equality things gets increased or inequality gets decreased. That is the reason behind reservation. So this dilemma can be solved. Again, how? कैसे solve होगा? प्रिफरेंशियल ट्रीटमेंट ओनली टिल अ लिमिटेड पीरियड, हमेशा के लिए नहीं, लिमिटेड पीरियड के लिए करो, अंटिल द अंडर प्रिविलेज्ड सेक्शंस बिल्ड देयर कैपेबिलिटीज, तब तक आप प्रिफरेंशियल ट्रीटमेंट दे सकते हो. प्रिफरेंशियल ट्रीटमेंट इन कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग बट नॉट इन द एम्प्लॉयमेंट अपॉर्चुनिटीज. एम्प्लॉयमेंट अपॉर्चुनिटीज में आप प्रिफरेंशियल ट्रीटमेंट ना दें. Preferential treatment to be assessed against its impact on the society and progressively reducing it. Slowly progressively आप इसको reduce करो. Okay. Preferential treatment जो कि हम reservation में बोल सकते हैं. See, reservation is mostly also used for political gains also. Okay. And it's a very, like, it has a long history to it. So to some limited number, to some time, maybe 2 persons per family or something like that, you can, but that we should not write in a GS4 answer. We should not write कि 10 साल के लिए या 20 साल के लिए या 30, नहीं, तो limited period. Okay. Next, dilemma between honesty and efficiency. ये बहुत यूज होता है, honesty and efficiency. This dilemma काफी like difficult होता है. ऑन द सरफेस इट में अपीयर दैट बोथ ऑफ दिस वैल्यूज आर अनरिलेटेड, मतलब लग सकता है ये अनरिलेटेड है, लेकिन ऐसा है नहीं। तो थोड़ा अगर आप लिटिल डीप जाओगे तो इसके रिलेशनशिप के बारे में आपको पता चल जाएगा। दिस हैज नथिंग टू डू विद अ पर्सन ऑब्जर्विंग ऑनेस्टी इन हिज और हर ओन डीलिंग्स एंड बीइंग एफिशिएंट एट दैट टाइम। वैसा कुछ बात नहीं कि ऑनेस्टी उस टाइम पे अपने काम पे ऑनेस्टी, अपने डील पे ऑनेस्टी, अपने जो भी डीलिंग कर रहा है, एंड बीइंग एफिशिएंट एट दैट टाइम। अ गवर्नमेंट फंक्शनरीज एफिशिएंसी डिपेंड्स ऑन द कोऑपरेशन extended by his or her subordinates and peers. Many times, this government functionary does not have any power to exercise disciplinary action against those subordinates and peers. कभी कभार वो जो गवर्नमेंट फंक्शनरी के पास पावर नहीं रहता है कोई सबऑर्डिनेट या फिर अपने पीयर के खिलाफ कोई डिसिप्लिनरी एक्शन ले। इन सच केस इफ वन ट्राइज टू प्रिवेंट देयर डिसऑनेस्ट एक्ट्स ऑफ टेकिंग ब्राइबरी and collusive corruption, they may willingly not cooperate. This slows down the performance of government functionary. तो परफॉर्मेंस कम हो रहा है मतलब एफिशिएंसी कम हो रही है। But if a government functionary does not act firmly against unethical practices of subordinates, they extend cooperation. So also many times, even if a corrupt subordinate is removed from service, the government often does not give replacement instantly. this should amount to a loss of a resource for functioning, because एक आदमी को अगर तुम निकाल दोगे और जल्दी से रिप्लेस नहीं करोगे उसको, तो ऑब्वियस सी बात है, तो ओवरऑल एफिशिएंसी ऑफिस का कम हो जाएगा या फिर उस पर्टिकुलर डिपार्टमेंट का। सो दिस लॉस आल्सो एडवर्सली impacts the performance. to keep things in perspective suppose to keep things in perspective, suppose a district collector has 10 tehsildars under him. Now he finds 7 of them corrupt, 3 corrupt है, ठीक है। if all of them are removed, then the collector has to function with just 3 tehsildars. तो it adversely again affects efficiency. मतलब इट्स अ वेरी गुड एग्जांपल, ये एग्जांपल यूज कर सकते हो। वो 7 करप्ट है, तो बिकॉज ही इज ऑनेस्ट सो ही रिमूव्ड देम, but only 3 are there, so obviously his honesty will impact the efficiency, right? It will impact the efficiency. But not acting firmly against such unethical practices amounts to indirectly abetting those practices. Then given the government functionary is indirectly guilty of dishonesty, ये होता है। तो इस डायलेमा को आप सॉल्व कैसे करोगे? See, this dilemma can be solved in the following ways. Being an anonymous whistleblower about the subordinates upon whom one does not have power to exercise disciplinary action, and slowly getting such unethical subordinates punished. आप एक एनोनिमस whistleblower मतलब क्या? Whistleblower is the one who exposes, जो एक्सपोज करता है कुछ अगर करप्ट प्रैक्टिसेस चल रहा है कंपनी में या फिर कोई ऑर्गेनाइजेशन पे, तो उसको विशल ब्लोअर कहते हैं। सो बीइंग एन एनोनिमस विशल ब्लोअर अबाउट द सबऑर्डिनेट्स upon whom one does not have the power to exercise disciplinary action, and slowly getting such unethical subordinates punished, फिर ऐसा ऐसा उन्हीं को ही आप पनिशमेंट दे रहे हो। taking firm stringent disciplinary action against corrupt subordinates to send a strong signal to all others. बिल्डिंग ऑटोमेटेड सिस्टम्स टू इंश्योर दैट देयर इज लेस, ये सबसे बेस्ट पॉइंट है जो आप वे फॉरवर्ड में या फिर लिख सकते हो कि ऑटोमेटेड सिस्टम लाइक यूज ऑफ आईसीटी, इंफॉर्मेशन एंड कम्युनिकेशन टेक्नोलॉजी यूज कर दो। अगर जो दैट एग्जांपल इज 7 चले गए बाकी 3 रहे, सो इफ यू यूज आईसीटी सो मैन पावर इज नॉट रिक्वायर्ड, जितना आईसीटी हो सकता है उतना यूज करो सो दैट लेस मैन पावर इज रिक्वायर्ड. So building automated systems to ensure that there is less human interference and thus there is both honesty and efficiency. Okay, fine. Next is dilemma between being rule bound and flexibility. एक चीज होता है कि रूल के हिसाब से आपको चलना पड़ेगा, और अगर आप पूरा रूल के हिसाब से जाओगे तो ऑब्वियसली योर दैट फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी वैल्यू, जो कि आज के डेट में जरूरी भी है, मॉडर्न वैल्यू हो चुका है, लास्ट क्लास में हमने पढ़ा था. So there are often times when both these thing comes, like dilemma comes between rule bound and flexibility. Observing rules and being flexible are both competing ethical principles. Being flexible is also a principle. This is a modern principle, very recent. Last class we studied. Observing rules is a very conventional or traditional. This is how the dilemma between agar question aayega traditional values and modern values, so you have to write all these things. Okay, they will not ask you directly, they'll change the word. Okay, as already mentioned, ethics guides a decision to be right or wrong. Right, ethics का मतलब ही वही है. Rules imply regulations governing conduct. जो भी आप काम कर रहे हो, जो भी आप करोगे, तो कहीं ना कहीं आपके काम को गाइडेंस वो रूल करता है, रूल के हिसाब से करना पड़ेगा, काइंड ऑफ रेगुलेट, रूल्स रेगुलेट योर कंडक्ट और द गवर्नमेंट कंडक्ट. The government lays down the rules for observance by government servants in their functioning. Thus, following rules is regarded to be ethical. आपको रूल फॉलो करना पड़ेगा क्योंकि गवर्नमेंट ने बनाया है ये रूल फंक्शन करने के लिए, गवर्नमेंट चलने के लिए, या फिर आप आपके फंक्शनिंग, गवर्नमेंट की फंक्शनिंग और गवर्नेंस की फंक्शनिंग के लिए कुछ रूल्स बनाए हैं. सो ऑब्वियसली यू हैव टू फॉलो दैट रूल. सो फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी implies the ability to adjust and get adjust. फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी क्या होता है? आप कितना एडजस्ट करते हो और कितना एडजस्ट कर पाते हो. In this is the context, it actually, so in this context it actually means adjusting rules to suit larger public good. मतलब आप रूल्स को एडजस्ट करते हो. यू आर नॉट चेंजिंग द रूल्स. सी, डोंट यूज द वर्ड चेंजिंग रूल्स, इट विल बी रॉन्ग. You can't change the rule. You are not government. You have to follow the rule made for you or for the functioning, but you have to adjust to the rule. Adjust the rules so that the larger public is benefited. So that the larger public is benefited. It may appear that since rules are made to promote larger public good, there should be no dilemma between these two, because the need to adjust the rules should not arise at all. However, dilemma arises because of the following. आपको लग सकता है कि रूल्स तो बनाया गया है पब्लिक की बेनिफिट के लिए. यू मे थिंक कि रूल्स आर मेड फॉर द पब्लिक, बट इट्स नॉट द केस. और लगेगा कि कुछ डायलेमा है ही नहीं, लेकिन डायलेमा होता है. देयर इज अ नीड. व्हाई? बिकॉज ऑफ द फॉलोइंग रीजंस. Many rules are made in the past suiting those circumstances. Today we are in 2022. There are colonial laws. For example, Official Secrets Act is 1923 Act, इंडियन फॉरेस्ट एक्ट 1927 एक्ट. बहुत सारे पुराने एक्ट्स हैं जो कि अभी तक चेंज नहीं हुए हैं. सो इन टूडेज मॉडर्न रिक्वायरमेंट्स के लिए दोज रूल्स आर नॉट परफेक्ट, राइट? सो like with all due respect to that rule, we need to have some adjustment. A single rule cannot cater to the needs of all sections of the society because it's kind of a one size fits all approach. Hence a rule demands exceptions. Always, everything is not absolute. Fundamental rights has also exceptions. Everything has an exception. Sometimes exceptions are not thought out at the time of formulating rules. कभी कभार जब हम rules बनाते हैं, सरकार बनाती है, तब exception करना भूल जाती है. So these are the reasons why the dilemma arises between a rule and this one. So suppose a rule lays down that health insurance is available only to those people who have a ration card. अगर कोई रूल बोलता है कि हेल्थ इंश्योरेंस उन्हीं को मिलेगा जिसके पास राशन कार्ड है. But a district collector visits an old age home and finds that there are many elderly people. There are many elderly people deserted by their children. Children छोड़ के उनको चले गए हैं. They don't have ration card. अब वो क्या करेंगे? They don't have ration card. But even though they deserve a health insurance, right? Because everyone has a right to health. Article 21. सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने खुद बोला है, आर्टिकल 21, everyone has a right to health irrespective of you have a ration card or not. Now the rule says कि only those who have ration card they can avail the benefit. So they are denied of the same because of this minor technical fault. In such case, should the DC tweak the rule to give them health insurance, or should he have to deny them health insurance? Citing the rule. Rule दिखाएगा और बोलेगा कि आपको हेल्थ इंश्योरेंस नहीं मिलेगा. अगर आप ये कर रहे हो, अगर आपको हेल्थ इंश्योरेंस नहीं मिल रहा है, आप बना कर रहे हो, इट मीन्स योर कंपैशन एटीट्यूड इज एट स्टेक. आपका कंप वो भी एक वैल्यू है. सो अगेन इट इज अगेंस्ट वैल्यू वर्सेस रूल. ओके. This dilemma can be resolved by tweaking the rule to serve public good and then get the action ratified. आप rule change कर दो. See, you can't change the rule, but you can at least try to change the rules to adjust to some minor changes. आप कर सकते हो, गवर्नमेंट को प्रपोजल दे दो. Seeking the, but in a writing कि there are people, there are lots and lots of people in my district who are facing this problem. So we are doing our work for the public good. So I need as soon as ratification of this rule. So you can change. Seeking the permission for carving out an exception to the rule. Getting the rule amended quickly to serve the public good. So these are the issues which you face in your public institutions, the ethical dilemmas.